here at the OneMed Forum, and I'm joined by Michael Weichert with SCA Medical Systems now.
Hi,
Thank you
pleased
for
to be
joining me.
here. We're very glad to be here.
Good. Tell me a little bit about the focus of SCA Medical Systems.
So SCA Medical Systems is actually focused entirely on IV drug safety. We have two founders who are physicists, and they were very eager to pursue fluid sensing and worked in other industries doing oil condition monitoring. But they looked for a new challenge and left that company, and while they were trying to figure out what to do next, one of the founders had a father who had an IV drug error in the hospital. And so that rose to the very top of their priority list, trying to figure out what to do. And once they understood the magnitude of the problem and understood how important IVs are, then they really set to work on this in earnest. I mean, IVs are ubiquitous. They're used in millions of patients. They're life-sustaining and in many cases life-saving drugs. But unfortunately, there's a lot of errors associated with their use. The Quaid twins is the most well-known. You know, Dennis Quaid and his wife Kimberly had twins 2 years ago that had an IV drug error. They got heparin as an overdose, 1,000-fold higher than the level they should have received, not once but twice, before the hospital even knew they made an error. And that kind of error, unfortunately, is very common and kills many infants every year in U.S. hospitals. So in U.S. hospitals, there's like 450,000 adverse drug events that happen with IV medications every year. And that leads to, unfortunately, about 4,000 deaths a year. So we focused ourselves on ensuring the safe delivery of those IV medications.
So it's interesting to know that the development of this product came out of a personal experience with an IV error. Give me a sense of, you know, the kind of errors involved with IVs, you know, beyond what we've talked about so far. What are the other problems associated with this?
Right. So if you look at all the adverse drug events, the 450,000 adverse drug events that happen with IV medications, 58% happen at the point of administration to the patient. So there's a few that happen when you prescribe the medication incorrectly, or when you transcribe that prescription incorrectly, or when you actually prepare it incorrectly, but the majority is right at the point of administration. You can easily give the wrong dose of the drug to the patient. You can give the wrong rate of delivery to the patient, so the patient receives the drug too fast. You can actually hang the bag or the syringe with the wrong patient. So you're giving the wrong drug to a patient.
And we're talking about human errors.
Those are all human errors, and they're very serious errors. All of those can lead to potentially catastrophic errors. If you give insulin to a patient that isn't a diabetic, that can kill him. If you give glucose to a patient who is a diabetic, that can send them into hypoglycemia. So these kinds of errors are critical to managing care, and unfortunately, because every system that's relied on to help manage IVs is all human data input somewhere. Even if you use a barcode, you had to make the barcode in the hospital pharmacy. So you had to enter in what was supposed to be there, and if you made a mistake there, that barcode gets perpetuated through all the subsequent steps. If you make the solution wrong, it doesn't matter if the barcode is right, if the solution made in the bag in the hospital pharmacy is wrong, that's perpetuated through the rest of the system. So all of the chain of control that's used to try to manage carefully the IVs all have introduction of human errors along the way. So they're kind of swapping errors. They control these errors, but they introduce these errors instead. And we still have a pervasive problem that isn't going to go away just from technology.
So how is SCA Medical Systems solving that problem?
So what we do is a completely different approach. You know, we have this chain of control because there's no way to know what's in an IV. They're all clear liquids. They all look the same. You know, how are you going to know what's in there? And we've taken on that problem and said, well, you know, there are technologies that could be used to tell what's in there. And some people have tried optical technologies. They don't work very well, and they're blind to a lot of different drugs. What we use is radically different. We actually use a multiparametric approach. We take a signature of what's in that fluid. We actually have 124 different parameters we're currently measuring of that fluid, and we can take a signature of what's in that fluid, match it to a database that's been trained to recognize the different drugs, the different diluents that drugs are made in, the different concentrations drugs are made at, and it can rapidly identify what's in there in real time and report that continuously. So we're developing a couple products. One's called IV Check, and that's used in the hospital pharmacy. You take a sample of the IV out of the bag or out of the syringe, you drop it on a little sensor, and it instantly tells you the drug, the diluent, and the dose, so that the hospital pharmacy can validate, did they make the right thing? Is that what they were supposed to make? And then at the patient's bedside, we have what we call the Smart IV. The Smart IV is a little sensor you plug in the IV line so that the solution is flowing past the sensor all the time. And the sensor is making that continuous multiparametric signature and reporting that via monitor so that the nurse now has a way of telling what's the drug, what's the dose, what's the diluent that's actually in the IV all the time, so that she has a backup. Because currently nurses are scared stiff that they're going to be delivering the wrong drug to a patient by accident, and they have no way to know.
So it gives them a little bit of peace of mind?
huge peace of mind. When we talk to nurses about this and say, would you use this? It's going to be extra work. You're going to have to put another piece of equipment at the patient's bedside to monitor the IVs. 87% said we'd use it tomorrow if it was available. You know, this would be a wonderful backup so that we would have the security of knowing there's a way to tell whether the patient's getting the right meds.
So these sound like two really great products, but how close are they really to coming to market?
Well, actually, the IV check system doesn't require any regulatory approval at all. So that product could be on the market within a year of funding. And that's one of the reasons why we're at this conference, seeking $6 million in Series A funding, so that we can get that product all the way to market. Now, the Smart IV is a little bit more complicated implementation of exactly the same technology. So everything we do for the IV check is moving the Smart IV along as well. And that's a product that could be on the market in late 2011 or early 2012. Now, both those products have opportunities for substantial sales. If you look at the size of IV use in the US, about 1 million IVs are made just in hospital pharmacies alone, not including the ones that are manufactured by companies, not including the ones manufactured in compounding pharmacies. There's about 400 million IV sets. That's the tubing that are used with IV pumps to deliver drugs. There are 400 million sets of tubes used just with smart pumps alone, just the programmable pumps, not with PCAs, not with gravity sets, just smart pumps. If we were used only with a small fraction of either the smart pump sets or the IVs that are made, you're talking hundreds of millions of units in sales every year. So the economic opportunity for investors is enormous because the return for each of these products in terms of market is easily in the hundreds of millions of dollars a year in sales.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Michael, for discussing the products with us. It was great to learn more, and good luck with your technology.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.